Hello and good evening, our beloved viewers. It's 9 p.m. You are watching our live RTD channel. Welcome to this English news edition. Coming up, the headlines. The meeting of the last plenary session of the year. And on the international scene about COVID-19, 200,000 new infection in France. Mask back on Paris. Those were the top stories. Thanks for joining us in our newsroom. This Thursday, December 30, the National Assembly held the third public session of the second ordinary session of the year. The plenary was held under the leadership of Mohamed Ali Hamed, President of the parliamentary institution, and with the participation of the Prime Minister, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, parliamentarians and members of the government. The objective of the session was about the examination and the adoption of the following provision, draft law number 139, related to the merger of some public administrative institution and the dissolution of many other institutions. And the second one was a draft financial law number 142 for the year 2021, issued by the 8th legislature, relating to the state's discretionary budget for the next year. The first project relating to the modification of the status and organization of the National Police Forces was presented by the parliamentarians, and all was given to exchange between the deputies and the member of the government. The finance bills on the 2022 state budget gave rise to an intense discussion. This agenda allowed the deputies and members of executive to have a constructive debate in which they took turns putting forward arguments and counter-arguments. Clarification were requests from the head of department in charge of the water resources for health and on social issues. Given that health is a priority and water as sources of life for the population living in remote areas like the region of interior Obor region. A question about the place and the health center were also questioned, and the widely raised by the parliamentarians. The parliamentarian asked for the clarification and additional information on the bills of the agenda, in particular on the project relating to the status and organization of the general direction of the national police, and on the project relating to the budget for fiscal year 2022. The parliamentarian questioned also the executive and increase in accident recently. For their part, a member of the government answered the question and inquiry addressed to them by the number of parliamentarians. The minister concerned provide additional information on the basic development policy and social action throughout the country, particularly in isolated areas for the administrative center of the capital. The minister responsible for sectoral department for the secretary of the access to water and health care have stepped up the plate to provide details on the question posed by the parliamentarians. Finally, after the sustained exchanges between parliamentarians and ministers on bills on the agenda, the plenary session ended with the intervention of the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed. His Excellency the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed gave a special speech in which he praised the distinguished cooperation that exists between members of the government and the representative. In his speech, he underlined the seriousness and conviction of members of the government and the parliamentarians during the discussion in the hemicycle, which testified to the attachment that each and every one that carry out to the conception and conduct of both the parliamentary mandate and the ministerial function. For his part, the President of the Parliament, Mr. Muhammad Ali Humed, delivered a speech at the conclusion of the session in which he congratulated the member of the government and the deputies on the new year 2022. As we came, he said, to the end of the plenary session on Thursday, which ends a particularly basic year. He said, I would like to point it out on behalf of the national representation and on my own behalf, the quality and the consequence of the work accomplished, as well as the positive results which conduct the national development throughout the year 2021. The seriousness and conviction promoting of the effort member of the government as well as the parliamentary I testify, he said, to the attachment that each and every one has for the design and conduct both parliamentary and ministerial function. He said, finally, I like it as the customary to renew the congratulation on behalf of all the deputies, the members of the office, and in my own name to the centuries on the good progress of the parliamentary work, administrative staff of our institution, the media, including the RTD, the stewardship service of the parliamentary product to the National Gendarmerie makes available for us. He conclude. The Minister of Defense in charge of relation with parliamentary, Mr. Hassan Umar Mohammed, shared on the Sheikh Osman camp a ceremony dedicated to the inauguration of a new building dedicated to the women of the National Army Forces. Upon his arrival, the colonel and were received in this ceremony by Mr. Hassan Umar Mohammed, will receive a warm welcome from the Chief of General Staff of the National Army Forces, Lieutenant General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim. After the reception, the Minister Hassan Umar, accompanied by the Chief of the General Staff, perform a military parade in front of the various units of the National Army Forces. This took place in the presence of the number of government members, including the Minister of Social Affairs and Solidarity, Ms. Ulufa Ismail Abdou, and the Minister of Youth and Culture, Hibo Momin Assowe, with the participation of the Mayor of Djibouti City, Ms. Fatuma Awale, and the Vice President of the National Union of Djibouti Women, Ms. Hassan Ahmed Belil. This new building, which will houses the women of the army forces, were built and constructed by the National Army Forces Engineering Department.
expédite, commandant le régiment blindé et les services rattachés. Les devoirs, son excellence.
qaadiga fogiyo qomyaha dunidu raganimada way iqireen oo way qadariyaan quwadda difaacaanihiyo qorigii nabadeede quwadda difaacaanihiyo qorigii nabadeede.
In his speech, the chief of the General Staff of the Army Forces paid a fervent tribute to Sheikh Ousmane Camp on the first actor of the fight against colonization and to the father of the nation, the late Al-Hajj Hassan Gulaid Abtidon, an emblematic figure in the history of Djibouti whose grave is within the CCO. He did not fail also to recall about the staff of the FAD to that occupy various professions within the army forces as doctor, health, auxiliaries, social assistants, technician, administrative staff, not to mention he did not fail to mention the female military personnel who participate in the military peacekeeping mission as in Somalia since 2011, conclude the Chief of the General Staff of the National Army Forces. In a second part, the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim stressed that Djiboutian women remains an essential pillar of our entire community, and recall that it was in November 1977, that group of female personnel joined the Djiboutian Army Forces. He said through this ceremony, the female staff of the FAD were put in the spotlight since the creation of the FAD. The roles of the female staff of the FAD has constantly evolved. Today, the Djiboutian woman is represented in all social layers of administration, both in the civilian world and in the army. This change in the status of a Djiboutian woman has enabled female staff of the FAD to occupy various professions within the army forces in all categories, conclude the Chief of the General Staff of the Army Forces. Following the official speech, the Minister of Defense Hassan Omar Mohamed said by marking the opening of the building speech, the Minister accompanied the Chief of General Staff, the Army Forces. He said in these various faculties, by building the minister of member of the government signed the Golden Book. in his speech, and following the official speech, the minister Mr. Hassan Umar Mohammed inaugurate a cut ribbon making the opening of a building. He was accompanied by the chief of the general staff of the army forces, inspected the various facilities of a new building. The minister and member of a government signed the Golden Book of the National Army Forces.
yaha dunidu raganimada way ii qireen oo way qadariyaane quwadi difaacaanihiyo gurigii nabadeede quwadi difaacaanihiyo gurigii nabadeede kitsoonida qambaarkaanihiyo udura duushaaye dardarada nima qaada karin oo qaladna caanahaye dardarada nima qaada karin oo qaladna caanahaye sonida qambaarkaanihiyo urura duushaaye dardarada nima qaada karin dardarada nima qaadan karin oo qaladna caanahaye.
At the end of the ceremony, the General Staff of the National Army Forces held a breakfast in honor of the participant in the inauguration ceremony of the building, where the military Harbi band present folk songs and dances embodying the rules of the President of the Republic to advance the reality of the army forces.
aad sharfooniyo madaxdii fadhiyaano fooqyada aan arkayne fa'iyadeena ka muuqde sida fiican u jooge laga yaabo fartoodu wasiirkeena difaacu maanta noo furayaaye sugaantii fasilaysiyo faahfaahintii murtiyeedna xarbi baa fidinayse fiiriyo
umman misi yardi ke darci haglitan gidi kahin gihille nisar rimani arahat kahtu nibaru habbane hisani darci kadama ne kale nabba
على
Sport news now. The National Federation organized of the second edition of the championship under the auspice of the State Secretary in charge of sport. About 20 people from the game entitled The Enthusiasm of Sport participate in this tournament, which is the second of its kind. This course falls within the framework of the Federation's endowment to develop the players' level and increase their technical skills in different age groups. The Federation of the Games holds a number of tournaments at the level of the Republic for the age group throughout the year. It should be noted also that the tournament comes within the framework of the activating the game to stress the country's level and providing opportunities for the players, promoting. Pointed out that the tournament was characterized by the emergence of promoting talent that will be a club and national team. And now moving on to the international scenes. On Wednesday, France recorded the highest number of daily infections with COVID-19, which for the first one exceeded the thresholders, the 200,000 cases in the 24 hours, according to the figures revealed by Health Minister Olivier Véran. Which had already trapped Europe within 180,000 confirmed new cases per 24 hours. On Tuesday, announced the number that had now scored the 208,000 cases. He said, I wouldn't call Omicron a wave anymore. I will call it a groundswell, French health minister said, and told the newspaper, given the number we have been seeing these past few days, we are talking about a landslide. This is it for this edition. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful evening.